We can't collapse the government because one party is unhappy.
You suffered an assassination attempt.
The damage is quite serious. I think it was a bit unfortunate that some of our leaders were rushing to make comments, and I think they must learn to restrain themselves.
This waterfall property, you do confirm that from time to time, at least, you do sometimes reside there. Do you dispute the number of 38 million of the valuation of the property?
They got it from me. There are other people every day who are pushing for Comrade Patrice's name.
Are you going to be the next ANC president? Fam, I just want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Pace Car Rental. Use promo code SMWX for 10% off your next car rental, and make sure you show Pace some love as they're showing this channel some love. Now, let's get into the episode. Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX and a milestone episode on our podcast, because today I'm proud and honored to say that we are joined by none other than the Deputy President of the Republic himself, Mr. Paul Mashatile. Mr. Deputy President, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sizwe. I thought you were going to say at last.
Indeed. We have been trying. But
yes, I know.
It's amazing to see you at the highest levels of government appreciating the importance of new digital media and podcasts. So we really appreciate your time today.
Yes, no, thank you very much. A lot has happened since the last time we were trying to arrange this. But indeed, I'm happy finally that we have this opportunity.
We're so happy to have you here.
Yeah.
Can I start with the GNU itself and its stability?
Yeah.
After the firing of Andrew Whitfield, the GNU has come under some strain, shall we say, with the DA saying that they're going to potentially support a motion of no confidence, not pull out of the national dialogue, not support budget votes of certain ministers.
Yeah.
How do you respond to the way the DA has reacted to the firing of the former Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry?
Well, I think the first thing I should say really is that the appointment of ministers and deputy ministers is a prerogative of the president, and they should appreciate that. I think it will be very difficult to put the president in a situation where he has to consult everybody when he has to make these decisions. One thing I've noticed with the DA is that, they want to be in government, but at the same time being an opposition party. They are in that difficulty sometimes that they don't quite know where they stand. The position we have taken now is that the ANC ministers and MPs will vote for all budgets, even budgets of those departments that are led by the ministers of the DA, because in our view, the budget is really for the people. It's not the budget of a minister. So we've taken that decision that we will vote for all budgets so that resources can be made available to serve the people. So as far as we are concerned, the GNU is continuing. I know that they have taken a decision that they are not going to proceed with that threat of a motion of no confidence or pulling out of the GNU. There are divisions amongst themselves about where to, but that's really their issue. As far as we are concerned, the GNU is proceeding to do its work.
Just on what you said about the GNU.
The GNU.
the DA trying to play both sides. On the one hand, they've taken a decision to stay in government. But on the other hand, yesterday, Helen Zille was at a police station laying criminal charges against a minister and attacking the president, saying that he's not getting serious on corruption. So they do seem to be trying to be in both worlds at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, you'll recall that the DA was an opposition party for the longest of time. So I think they're struggling to come out of that role. There are some, I think, who really amongst them wants to stay in government, to work in government. And I must say, we work very well with most of them in the cabinet. But it does seem like within the DA itself, there are those who are struggling to come out of the opposition party role, which sometimes irritate our supporters as well. You know, ANC leaders, ministers, and MPs gets irritated by this, and they say, like, but let's let these people go, man. And we say, no, it's okay. We understand these dynamics. With time, they will probably understand that if you are in government, you have to be in government, you have to govern. If you want to be an opposition party, go and be an opposition party. So we're really leaving it to them, because we are convinced that the GNU will not collapse because the DA is pulling out. There are other parties there who have said to us, look, we are ready to work with you, the EFF, MKP as well. So, because right from the beginning, EFF and MKP were not excluded from GNU. There are people who believe that, they were not considered. They did not come in because of their particular issues they had at the time. But they were consulted. And we then said with the president, look, guys, the doors are open. Anytime, let's talk. So we can't collapse the government because one party is unhappy about this policy or that policy or this program. If there are other people who want to come into government and work with us and agree on the program, a minimum program, because that's really what keeps us together. We want to grow the economy and create jobs. We want to deal with high cost of living, make life better for our people. We want a capable, ethical, and developmental state. Those are the issues that keeps us together. If we agree on this, let's work and go forward.
Absolutely. The DA has made it seem as if they pull out, the economy will collapse and foreign relations will deteriorate. It feels a little exaggerated to me.
Yeah, in fact, Helen Zille likes making this right, even this morning. I read one newspaper where she says, fire us from the GNU and the rent will crash. Yeah, she makes this all the time, which is problematic because we thought we're going to work together because we are putting South Africa first, all of us, not narrow political interests. But those are the challenges we are dealing with at the moment. But the GNU is working. We're going forward.
It's a fascinating time in our politics.
Indeed.
Do you feel that the firing of Andrew Whitfield was justified?
Well, from my conversation with the president, yes. Because the president said to me, this behavior, and it's not the first time. Ministers and deputy ministers know that when you have to travel outside of the country, even for a holiday, you talk to the president and seek permission. Even me as deputy president, I I don't get on a plane and leave. I talk to the president, but I write to him. It's put on record. President, you said I must go on a trip to Japan. I will be leaving on this day, and I want the following ministers or deputy ministers to come with me, and the president will approve. Only when the president has approved, we then start making bookings to go. That's how it's done. You don't say, no, I've written to the president, he has not responded, but I'm going nevertheless, because that's what he did. He got on the plane and left and come back later. Our understanding is that when you don't get the response from the president, it means your trip is not approved. Yes, it's not approved. As long as you don't have a response, it means you must take it. It is not approved. And the president has to be tough, because if he doesn't do it with one minister or deputy ministers, others will think that's acceptable behavior. So he didn't do it because he's a DA deputy minister. He's doing it so that no deputy minister or minister, whether it's ANC or not, should ever think that they can do that. It's never done.
The DA has responded by saying that there's a double standard, and I wonder what your response to that is. That it seems that it's been quite easy to fire a DA minister, but it's very hard to hold ANC ministers accountable, such as, for example, the Minister of Higher Education, who's been in hot water recently. What do you make about this point that if the president is tough on one party, he should also be tough on ministers from his own party?
Yes, I have that argument quite a lot. My sense is that the president is attending to all these matters. I think we should give him space to look at everything. I don't think the president will necessarily be soft to ANC ministers or deputy ministers and be hard on others. I don't think so. I think we need to give him space. He's looking at all these issues. It's not that he's closing his eyes against what's happening, even with Minister of Higher Education. I'm sure he is attending to these matters, and with time we'll know what his thinking is on how to deal with these matters. But my sense is that there will always be fairness on his part on how to deal with these issues. Nobody's targeted.
If I can change tack.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, there was a report that you suffered an assassination attempt. This caused a great deal of worry, speculation in the country. What's your understanding right now as we sit of what happened on that day?
Well, it was a very strange thing, because I was traveling from an ANC NEC meeting. We normally use the same route with the president. He left before me. And as we were driving, I think it's an area not far from Alex, Edenvale,
right,
when my car was hit by something on the windscreen. I was not too very concerned at the time. And because, sometimes when you drive on the road, a car in front of you may, go over stones that may hit your car.
Sure.
So we drove home. But when we got home, the protectors looked at the windscreen and they thought the damage is quite serious. I think it was on 6 parts of the windscreen.
Wow.
They then said, no, let's take this car to be checked. Because as you heard before, I said this could be stones.
Yeah.
It's only when the car was checked in Pretoria, then they said, no, it's some pellets from a gun. Now the question was, why? Well, the police came up with a report and said, look, it's probably a stray because that gun hits about 12 pellets. You were hit by 6, so they probably were not shooting at you. That's their report. But everybody accepted. At the beginning, people were saying, look, no, there was never, the car was never shot at. Remember, I didn't use the word, there was an attempted assassination on my life, and I never used that word.
Sure.
I actually said, yes, my car was hit by something. It is the police that said, yes, it was a gun. And I said, okay, you investigate. They came back and said, yeah, we don't think they were shooting at you. You were caught by stray. So a person was shooting at something else, maybe. So I thought, let me leave it there. They said, look, we'll investigate further because remember, they can check cameras on the freeway and other things. So for now, we left it at that. Their report is that, look, whoever was shooting was not shooting at me. Yeah. So I left it at that.
How did you feel? Because that whatever the police report might say, I mean, that must be quite unsettling, especially as you were leaving a political gathering. And, I mean, I know we have a violent country, but 6 stray bullets hitting the car of the deputy president should alarm all of us.
Yeah, well, one of the questions I was asked is, do I feel safe? And my response was, yes, I do, because both myself and the president, I think we are well protected. I think it's really for the authorities to really verify that indeed there was nothing that is sinister. But I mean, I didn't want to say to them, look, your report is not serious, because they said, look, we have investigated. We can confirm that it was a gun, but we don't think they were shooting at you. So I said, it's okay. So for now, I decided, let's leave it at that and continue with life. Yeah.
It was quite disheartening for me to see that there were some members of the ANC who also kind of cast doubt on whether this had even happened or not. We had an EC member and Northern Cape Premier Zamani Saul and Secretary General Fikile Mbalula suggesting it could be fake news, and why would someone target a deputy president? I know that there have been some internal processes after that. Have you been able to speak to them to iron out why they caused public doubt over whether your car was actually hit and whether there was intent behind it?
We've never really discussed it. The only person who sent me a message was Comrade Zamani Saul.
Right.
Almost immediately when that came out, he said to me, look, I've been quoted out of context. Okay. All I was saying is that, why would anybody target, any of our leaders when in fact we are a party of 40%? In other words, we are not a threat as the ANC. So we talked about it briefly, but he was really saying, I just wanted to explain what I meant, and so on. I think really as my attitude is that as leaders, we should not rush to make comments on matters of that nature. Leaders must sometimes wait. Yes, because once you say, we do know that there are fake news in this country, but sometimes when you hear things like this, you give yourself time, because many people don't even know that I never commented on that matter for 2 weeks. Yes. By the time it came out, it was after 2 weeks.
Wow.
Because when it happens, and when the police said, we want to investigate, I said, fine. I never said anything. I only responded when the matter came out later. And I remember some people in the media say, why were you guys quiet and so on? But I was very clear that, look, whatever I think happened, let's leave it to those who can investigate properly. It was only that time that I then commented and said, yes, I have received a report and this is what it's saying. So yeah, I think it was a bit unfortunate that some of our leaders were rushing to make comments, and I think they must learn to restrain themselves.
Yeah. Well, I think across the political spectrum and the country, we'd all join in wishing everyone in our government, including you, safety.
Yes.
No matter whether we agree or disagree.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you. In terms of your record in government, I mean, you've served in high positions in parties and government for nearly all of my life, actually.
Are you 40 years old?
36. So,
yeah.
I mean, you've made contributions nationally. You're the deputy president now, but at least one of your signatures is the contribution you made to Gauteng.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of your biggest achievements in government, and particularly in the province of Gauteng, where, we have the Gautrain, we have major infrastructure projects, we have a series of funds that have been set up to develop the province. And sometimes people think all this infrastructure was here from apartheid, but it actually, much of the development happened during your time in office.
When I started in Gauteng, many of us, of course, at the time had not been in any government. In fact, we have not. Many came from exile and so on. And in 1994, suddenly we were in government. I recall that I became a member of the provincial legislature, and we had a very interesting debate with Tokyo, because he was the premier.
Right.
So he said to me, look, I don't want you to come to government, because at that time I was the secretary of the ANC. I said, I think you should stay. Because if we both leave, the party will collapse. So I said, no, I think you're right. So he then set up the government. But at the end of having set up the government, in fact, he came back to me and said, look, I don't know a lot of these comrades. I was in Robben Island, so can you help me?
Interesting.
Who do you think we should make an MEC for finance, housing, etc.? So I helped him out with some ideas. But the other comrades wanted me to also come in. And Tokyo said no. So at the end, I remained behind. And later on, I think it was July of that year, I was then called by Tokyo and said, look, you are a member of the legislature. You are not in government as an MEC, as we agreed, but we want you to come in to be the leader of government business. But don't take any portfolio like an MEC, but you will serve in the cabinet as ex officio.
I see.
So then I took that responsibility. And of course, you'll recall that I don't know if you'll recall this, and I think a year or two later, the National Party pulled out of the government. Yeah. It was a government of national unity.
Yes,
they pulled out. They had 3 MECs in Gauteng. So I was traveling. I was in Hong Kong with some parliamentary work, and Tokyo called me and said, hey, those guys have decided to leave. I still don't want you to come in. But your friends are fighting. Jabu Muleketi, and them I said, no, we want Paul to take over one of the departments. Then Tokyo said, okay, I'm giving in now. Because your friends are fighting that you should take over a ministry. So I said, okay. So I came back and he said, look, I want you to take over the department that was led by the leader of the opposition. It was a guy called Olas van Zyl, who was the leader of the National Party. And that was Transport, Road and Public Works. So that was really my first department to lead in Gauteng. It was 1996.
Yeah.
And during the course of that, we had a big debate with Tokyo as a premier about how we improve passenger transport. So I said to him, I think we should now focus on rail, commuter rail. And Tokyo said, look, I think we should see how we can expand the freeways. So I said to him, no, let's move away from road to rail. And we had a debate. So I then went to France, I went to Germany, Brazil, Argentina, Italy, look at how they manage commuter rail. And I came back and I said to Premier, I think we must go underground, commuter rail and all that. I had a discussion with Jabu Muleketi, who said to me, you know what, it's going to be difficult to do underground rail system in Johannesburg because of the mines.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But maybe let's look at certain corridors where we can do rapid rail. So we looked at airport to Sandton, to Joburg and to Pretoria. That was really the birth of Gautrain.
Wow.
You know, I know that it was implemented much later when Tokyo had already left, because Tokyo left in 1998. But at the time the idea came in, he was the premier.
Yeah.
And he always joked with me, Tokyo says, you know, when you convinced me about the issue of rail, and he went to Germany for a visit, and then he came to Germany and said, I'm coming to buy a train. So we always laugh about it.
Yeah.
So that was one of the project that was quite challenging, because in the African continent, there is nowhere where you'll find an underground rail system. Nowhere at all. So it was the first of its kind. Many people were very doubtful whether we could do it.
I remember there was a lot of noise.
And another challenge was it became more expensive than we thought.
Sure.
So initially when we started, Jabu Muleketi was the MEC for finance. So, you know, we were very good friends. So my friends call me Spokes. So right. Jabu says, Spokes, I'm going to give you 7 billion for this project.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, sharp, cool. But when the RFPs were concluded, no proposal was below 15 billion.
Oh my.
So now the trouble started. So we said, no, let's go to national government. So we went to Trevor Manuel and said, look, you need to give us more money for this project. And at the beginning, Trevor was not convinced. So every time I talk to him, he says, oh, Gautrain, inshallah. But then after, of course, Tokyo had already left, so Mbazima was there. So Mbazima said, no, I'll go with you. We're going to engage. And the good thing that then Jabu became the deputy minister of finance.
Yes,
so he was now on the other side. So he was helping us to push the other side. What really helped us to get that project through was the World Cup. So we went to national government and said, look, this is going to help the World Cup. So put it in the book that we're going to have a rapid rail commuter rail system and so on. And so it became easy for national government to say, okay, we will help you. And because we were pestering them, one day we were in a meeting with the National Treasury, and Ismail Momoniat then looked at us and said, okay, guys, I'll give you 11 billion.
Wow.
So we said, cool. So we started the project. And because of the World Cup, we had to finish certain sections of that project before the World Cup, particularly airport to Sandton. And then we said we'll conclude the others afterwards.
Sure.
So record time, we did it. It was quite challenging. We pushed. It became more expensive than even what we got from national government. We had to go back again for more money, because once they started doing the underground, they hit serious rocks. At some point, the escalation will be by 3 billion. By the time we completed Gautrain, it actually cost us 26 billion.
Wow.
Just imagine starting from 7.
Yeah.
It cost us 26 billion, but it's a project we can be proud of.
Absolutely.
And, I know that the current leadership is trying, in Gautrain, is trying to extend this to other sections of the province, like Lanseria, so on. But national government is now thinking of a high-speed train to Durban, to Polokwane, and to the Eastern Cape. So those projects are now on board. And they will really look at the experience of Gautrain. But there are a number of other things we did in Gauteng. We came up with Jabu Mleketi when he was MEC. We started what we call the Blue IQ project. Gautrain was one of them, but the Nukeng Game Reserve. We came with other project like Newtown Precinct. And basically our motto at the time was, let's make Gauteng a construction site. So we were building everywhere. We were pushing. The economy at some point was growing at about 6% in Gauteng. We were doing quite well. We had surplus of 3 billion or more in our budget. It's the years where we did very well. I actually stayed for 15 years in the Gauteng government before I moved to national government. So if you ask me where my biggest experience comes from in government, it is actually from Gauteng. Because by the time I left Gauteng, I have been an MEC for public roads and transport, been MEC for safety and security. I was the MEC for housing. I was the MEC for finance and economic affairs. So I got a lot of experience in Gauteng before I became the premier. So by the time I left Gauteng, I was the premier, but for a short period of 8 months.
So Uncle Tokyo certainly succeeded in bringing you into government. His argument was correct, by the way, that we shouldn't all leave. Yeah.
And the ANC in the later years actually took a decision that secretaries should be full-time. But because of, at the time, there was no such a decision in the ANC, I ended up being the secretary of the ANC and also an MEC in government. So I had to do both jobs. And my deputy at the time, Obed Bapela, who was a deputy secretary, was also in the legislature, which is not a problem because, in fact, my sense is that secretaries can be in a provincial legislature, but maybe not in government.
Right.
Because it's more demanding to be an MEC or a minister and so on. But you can be in the legislature or parliament.
There were exciting times, particularly that boom that happened in the early and mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And I wanted to pick your brain on another policy initiative. Because the government property portfolio is a massive asset. And I know in your work in housing, you started to conceptualize an initiative where we could consolidate that portfolio and then potentially start to be able to draw loans off it, but also generate revenue from it.
Yeah.
And this is in line with some Scandinavian economists who've said that if government can just know what property assets it has on its register, it can then do amazing things and generate new revenue.
Yeah.
And in a time when revenue generation is really top of mind, what do you think of that prospect for South Africa, and how we can leverage the government's property portfolio itself to generate the much needed funds we need for development?
I think it should be done. When I was in Gauteng, when I was responsible for the housing division, we looked at that. And even when I was MEC for Finance, we looked at that idea. We started what we call the government precinct. If you look at the city of Joburg, you'll see that there's specific areas where we bought buildings. We had Matlotlo House, where the treasury was, and then we had another building where we had the Gauteng Shared Service Center. We bought those buildings around where housing was and so on. And we're doing exactly what we are saying, to have a property portfolio.
Yeah.
So my idea at the time was that under Blue IQ, let's build a property portfolio of probably 20 billion. When we looked at our properties at the time. And that we could then go to the private sector, to the banks, and say, look, we have a property of 20 billion. We need more funding to do our roads, to do this or that project, just on the back of that property portfolio. And government should do it because we have that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can take all these buildings and properties we have, they are quite sizable.
Absolutely.
I know that Sihle Zikalala, when he was Minister of Infrastructure in the national government, he started looking at government buildings.
Yeah.
Where are these government buildings? Let's pull them together. I guess that process may still be continuing. But if they can put them properly together and cost them, you may find that the South African government maybe has a property portfolio of 100 billion.
Absolutely.
If not more.
Absolutely.
And you can leverage on that to get more private sector funding for projects that are needed, so that we can be able to grow the economy faster and create jobs, because that's really what we need to do. And sometimes funding can become a problem. But we have taken a decision now that we should allow the private sector to participate more and more. You know, people have been very skeptical about private sector participation, but we think it should be something that we allow to happen, whether it's triple Ps or you know, those kind of arrangements where government comes in, private sector comes in, and we don't have to be a majority shareholder in all these projects.
Sure.
But critical ones, we can decide, yes, let government be a majority shareholder. It's not privatization of state assets, because some people are very skeptical. No, you want to privatize state assets. You say, no, it's partnership with the private sector. They are bringing more needed resources to bear so that we can be able to grow the economy, make South Africa advance, employ people, and so on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For the record, Mr. Deputy President, I mean, you've been, I think, the subject of quite a sustained campaign in some publications. Yeah. It's quite interesting to see how some people can be targeted for extreme accountability and others can be let off the hook for some egregious misdemeanors. But I mean, how do you feel about a lot of the reporting that has been putting into question your ethical conduct as it relates to some of the homes that either you stay in or your family owns, or the recent lotteries board question?
Well, I said that at some point to say, look, I think this is a campaign. And other people said, no, maybe not. But it's quite strange because, you know, when somebody writes and sustain a narrative that is not factual, it's a problem. And I'll tell you what, at the beginning, there was a story that I think there was this series called Unmasked.
Yes,
Mashatile, and it started looking at my role in the Gauteng government over the years. And the narrative was, I gave opportunities to my friends, some of whom are referred to as the Alex Mafia. And I was able to look at the factual basis of these stories, and I found that actually it's not based on any truth. And I tried to correct. I said to them, look, in any portfolio that I ran in Gauteng, I was never part of any procurement committee, because government established what we call bid committees. They are run by HODs. I never get involved in that. Even some of the things that they were mentioning, I said, I was not even in Gauteng at the time. I was in national government. But they never corrected those things. They went on and on. Now in national government, you know, they come with stories like you are referring to. Let me tell you something that might help. The issue of conflict of interest is something that government takes very seriously. In fact, in all our cabinet meeting, without exception, the first item when the president chairs the cabinet meeting, or when I chair, because it's the two of us, if the president is not there, I chair the cabinet. The first item is to all colleagues, is there anyone who wants to declare any conflict of interest? So we have an item called declaration of interest, because we are aware as government that one day we may have on the agenda an item where we are appointing let's say, CEO of Transnet.
Sure.
And when I look at the document, I should be able to say to the meeting, the person who's being recommended to be considered, it's Sizwe Mpofu, and is my niece. I want you to know that, so that I don't participate.
Sure.
Sometimes people can even be recused to say, don't participate in this because this is your niece or this is your friend, and so on. So those rules are there. But you see, the problem now is that we are now stretching it too far. if you look at the discourse now, that if I know you, Sizwe, you are my niece, and you get a job as a CEO of Transnet, somebody says, yeah, but he's a niece to the deputy president, who has no role in your appointment at all.
Sure.
So I think it's a question that we need to address as South Africans. How far do we want to take these matters? Because of our history of struggle, you are going to find it difficult in any family, particularly Africans or black people in general, where you will not find somebody who is a politician. You're going to find it difficult. So if we stretch it to that extent, it means many South Africans will be deprived of their rights to participate economically in their country because they are the children of so and so or the niece of so and so.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's a problem. Generally, conflict of interest must be prevented, and it has to be prevented at the point of decision making. I think if you stretch it too much by association, you're going to have very serious difficulties because many of us know so many people and so on and so on. So I of the view that it should be something that we deal with because there's direct participation. If you, as my niece, come to the union building, to ask to have a tender to clean the union building where I work as your uncle, I think it will be a problem.
Sure.
Because I have the power to decide there. Even if it's not directly the DG who reports to me, says to me, hey, the best person to clean the union building is your niece. I would be uncomfortable with that because of that proximity and so on. But if you get a job as a CEO of Transnet, which has nothing to do with me, I think it will be unfair for me to say, don't employ Sizwe because it's my niece, when Sizwe has the qualifications to be able to run Transnet. So that's the challenge we are dealing with. And maybe these debates are going to go on. Because I say to people, you may think it's Paul Mashatile today, tomorrow it will be somebody else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I can just confirm I'm not your niece or nephew. In case an article gets written.
It was just an example, yes.
People will tell me that I'm being too soft on you. So I just want to ask you some very quick accountability questions on this.
Yeah.
And I must acknowledge that it's great that you avail yourself for interviews. I think you've done 2 in the last week.
Yeah.
You're ready to answer questions, and you're not hiding from the media either. This waterfall property, you do confirm that from time to time, at least, you do sometimes reside there.
Yeah.
And do you dispute the number of 38 million of the valuation of the property?
No, in fact, they got it from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when we were asked to declare in 2024 when we came in? Okay, let me put it this way. I was the deputy president even in the previous term, and I think that's where it started. The property was bought by my son-in-law and then my son. And I then declared that this is one of the family homes that I use, and the one in Kelvin. Now, in our declaration of interest, they asked the value of the property. I then included the value of all these properties. So it's not that somebody clever went on to investigate and found this. I wrote it down to say this property was bought for so much. The issue really at the time was that my son-in-law and my son are able to buy these properties because they benefit from government contracts.
Right, yeah.
So that became a big issue. I then said, look, I can check that. I went to my son-in-law and he said, look, I don't do business with government at all, which is true. His businesses are in other sectors of the economy. He runs filling stations in Soweto and other places. The only thing that dragged him into government is that in 2013, when I was not in Gauteng, I was Minister of Arts and Culture, he applied for a loan from an institution called Gauteng Partnership Fund because he wanted to build student accommodation at VETS. And that was approved. I think it was 48 million. A year later, the partnership fund said, look, no, we're no longer prioritizing building student accommodation, so we can't proceed. So that project was cancelled, but there was 7 million that had to be paid out to people who did, I think it's called professional fees. Because when you want to do a development, you bring in architects and so on. So that money was then approved to pay those people. That is really the end of him, and doing business with government. Then I went to my other sons. What are you guys doing? They said, no, in 2022, the other sons, they formed a company. After they left university, they went into business, and they bid for. I think Gauteng government had a project to put fire extinguishers in hospital. They said, no, we bid for that project and we won it. Oh, yeah, but we've completed the work. It was not a big project. So I said to them, well, guys, I know in 2022 I was not in government as a TG of the ANC, but I said to them, please try and refrain from doing work with government going into the future. So that was the issue, and they took heed of that. I said, look, it's okay. You said you won it. I was not in government. I'm now the deputy president. It's going to be worse if you continue to do work with government. But as we speak, I can say without hesitation that there's nothing that suggests that my family benefit from government contracts. In fact, I don't have in my family anybody who works for government except me. No one.
And you can confirm that none of the money for the loan went into this house that you sometimes reside in?
No, not at all. Nothing, not a cent. In fact, this project was, the Gauteng Partnership Fund was in 2013. It was a long time ago. But my son-in-law did not make money out of it at all.
Just lastly, on this lotteries board question,
Yeah.
there's another person who is associated with you, I think 2 degrees via I think she's your wife's sister.
Yes, my wife is a twin.
Is a twin, yeah. So your wife's twin sister is a shareholder effectively in via one company who has shareholding in another company, the successful Lotto provider. And this is a very big multi-billion contract, there have been some questions about this person who's proximate to you being a shareholder of this important, very big contract. Do you think it's uneasy, again, to have this proximity with a lot of money close to you? And are South Africans justified in feeling this proximity is uncomfortable?
Well, maybe let me start with the facts. The Lotto is adjudicated by the National Lotteries Board. I think that's what it's called. And once they have adjudicated, they give their results to the Minister of DTIC. At the moment is Minister Pakstow. He then looks at whether they've followed all the necessary processes. Then he will okay it. It's not a matter that comes to cabinet at all. So we don't participate in it. So in this case, those processes took place, an announcement was made, and then the issue then comes out that one of the shareholders is a lady who's, a twin sister to my wife. So I said, okay. Firstly, she doesn't discuss business with me at all. One of them is a guy who's a friend to me, Moses Tembe. He doesn't really discuss his business with me. So when they went to bid for these things, they never came to me and say, we are going to bid for the Lotto. I didn't even know about it. At the end, Minister Tau approved because the board has followed all its processes. Now, if you look at it, now people are saying, no, but because she's my sister-in-law, it's a problem. It's not a direct conflict. They say it's indirect conflict because of the power I occupy. I could have influenced it. I could have, not that I have. Now I'm saying to them, no, I didn't. But they don't think that's sufficient. The suspicions that I could have influenced. Now that the problematic position with that is that you are actually questioning the integrity of the people who are given this responsibility, who I don't know. I now know that the chair is Prof. Pani Pichana because he's talking in the media. And I don't know who else is there. I think it's very problematic to suggest that men and women of integrity in South Africa who are given these responsibilities actually make decisions because they are influenced by someone in a powerful position. I think it's wrong, completely wrong.
Last question on this, because I want to ask you about the Arrival Lounge. But
The Arrival Lounge.
The one question that has been raised is that this entity, which is a shareholder in the entity which has been successful, registered, I think 2 months in December 2023, 2 months after the call for the lottery. And just a few months before, or just, I'm not sure if it was months or weeks before the actual application. Do you think there's a rational reason why the entity was formed so closely in time before this application to become the provider?
I wouldn't know, but I think normally, when people decide they are going to go into a particular business, they decide, okay, for instance, a Lotto runs for, I think, 8 years, if not 10, something like that. So when people have won this Lotto and they're running it, maybe close to, if it's 8 years, maybe on the 7th year, there may be other South Africans who decide we're going to bid for the next one. And close to that, they may decide to put in, form a company to prepare for themselves for that bid. I suspect that's really what happened.
Let's move finally to the question of ANC succession.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, you alluded to Tokyo Sexwale earlier, who's been on the show.
You know this question is banned, right?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not even going to ask it. But he did say that the current president is in the departure lounge just by virtue of his time in office and a new ANC conference on the horizon. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I would call you the front runner for ANC president. Are you going to be the next ANC president?
Well, when I was asked this question the last time, I said there's a way in which we do things in the ANC. And one of them is that you get nominated by branches when the time is right. So we open up the process and the branches start nomination. And then you get asked, do you accept or not? And then you say, okay, I accept, and so on and so on. And now, if I say to you, yes, I'm going to run, it may be interpreted that I'm campaigning because the succession issue is not yet opened up. As the Secretary General was saying recently on this matter, to say it's not yet the time. The NEC of the ANC decided that we should focus on the local government elections. We have done bad in the national and provincial elections, and therefore we need to improve. If any of us starts saying, look, I'm available, and people go in social media and say, look, you heard Paul Mashatile say he's available, yeah, we support him, whatever, others, we don't support him. Then the debate goes on. And then maybe one of the leaders come and say, yeah, I'm also available. We are avoiding that for now to say, look, that time will come. And when that time will come, I will come to your studio to talk to you about it.
So you're not unavailable.
Well, in fact, let me tell you something quite interestingly, that, I've spent quite, a period of time in the movement. Let me say in the movement.
Longer than nearly anyone at this point.
Before you were born. so in 1983, I was the president of the Alexander Youth Congress. Then I became General Secretary of the UDF Southern Transvaal at the age of 22.
Wow.
And so it goes. And then I became the Secretary of the ANC after unbanning, Secretary of the South African Communist Party after unbanning in the province, not nationally. And then national leader of part of the national leaders of the UDF, of the ANC. When President Mandela came out of prison, I served with him in the National Executive Committee. I was representing Gauteng at the time, as the Secretary of Gauteng. So I have never at any time during those past 40 years said no when I was asked to serve in the position. I've never said no.
There was even a time when you were both SG, TG, and various roles at once. So you've even served simultaneous
in fact,
roles.
People called me Holy Trinity. As it, I was
Yeah.
no. Remember, it was circumstances. I was the Treasurer General, but Comrade Jesse was not well. The late, may her soul rest in peace. She was not well.
Yeah.
So she then asked me to take over her responsibilities as I was full-time at Luthuli House. But then the Secretary General was suspended, Comrade Ace. So the NEC said, you must also take over those responsibilities because you are full-time at Luthuli House. So I ended up with 3 portfolios and I had to prepare for conference in 2022. It was quite a challenge preparing for a conference, running 3 portfolios. But I did it. Yeah.
Indeed. There's a suggestion that is quite interesting now that we could have a candidate to lead the ANC who hasn't served a lot within its structures, hasn't been a member of the NEC. This is billionaire business person, a friend of yours.
Patrice,
Yes, Mr. Patrice Motsepe. What do you make of a campaign for ANC leader that would, in some ways, I know he's been part of the movement for a very long time, but come from the outside?
Well, I can't discount him. I think what the Secretary General said, he should be, okay, let's say he must make sure his membership is in order. I'm assuming that he is a member of the ANC. So he probably belonged to a branch somewhere. The ANC constitution says anybody who's a member can have an opportunity to be elected to any position, whether in the branch, region, up to national. So it's okay if you are an ANC member, but there should not be a notion that the ANC challenges should be resolved by someone who comes from outside. It must be a member of the ANC. The only problematic issue now is that at the time when the ANC say we shouldn't campaign, there are other people every day who are pushing for Comrade Patrice's name.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they are faceless. That's problem number 1. So I doubt if Comrade Patrice knows them. Because if he should, or if he does, he should be able to go to them and say, guys, it's not the time to do this. Because I think if that is not stopped, it means other candidates in the ANC who may want also to make themselves available don't enjoy the same privilege of campaigning. So I think it's something that I think the SG was trying to deal with recently. Other people say he was too harsh. But I think he was trying to caution that, please, let's all follow the agreed upon protocols. I think once the process is open, let everybody campaign, including Comrade Patrice. Yeah, he's my friend, so he must just make sure his membership is in order.
Mr. Deputy President, I know your time is at a premium, but I just want to thank you not only for offering up a full hour of your time to be on this podcast, subjecting yourself to whatever questions I asked, including the tough ones, and giving digital media in South Africa this important milestone and boost. So we appreciate your time and we appreciate you joining us on SMWX.
Yes, thank you very much. And please pass my regards to your dad and your mom.
I certainly
know
will.
them very well.
I know. And they both sent their regards to you. So appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sizwe.
Thank you so much, Deputy President. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Help us reach that next milestone of 250,000 subscribers. Comment down below with your favorite moment from this interview. What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? Let's discuss in the comments down below, and keep it locked on SMWX. I have a deal with the Deputy President. If he becomes president, he's going to come on the podcast. But of course, he's not campaigning. Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.